Great. Well, great. Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming. Here in the UK, it's a beautiful day. So if you're out there playing in the sun, I totally understand why. And you'll be able to watch this recording about Mai Jing pulse diagnosis. And this is the first of 4 sessions that we're having. And these are all in preparation for courses that are upcoming later on. So I thought it would be a lot easier for me to teach face-to-face if I've explained the basics. So I have a PowerPoint prepared and I will share that now. Here we go. And can I just, yep, thumbs up, you can see it. Good, okay, and I will actually just start that. Sorry, I just need to start the slideshow. And this is just saying the webinar series. So thank you for coming. So the people who are going to be watching this are people from SEAM in Seattle, East West College's Tweenar course, where we've got quite a bit of this pulse diagnosis in there, Chiwei in Switzerland, in September, the Norwegian Acupuncture Association, I think that's how you call it, or that's how it is in English, right? And East West College will have one later, and perhaps some other courses that come in the meantime. So this is for 2025. And these are recorded and will be distributed to the others. The timing for the sessions are 1 hour, 30 minutes or 2 hours, depending on circumstances. We'll have 1 or 2 5-minute breaks and plenty of time for questions. So the structure is, we're on the first one here. And this is for, just a sec, I'm going to just get an annotation up in a sec. Oh yeah. Yeah, so we're in the introduction now. Then the one after this will be the whole pulse method of step A, then the 8 extras, and then the Zhang Fu method of step C. So it should be like easy content. The only drawback is that it's all done in terms of information. So obviously it's ahead of the practical work. And in a way, this method comes to life with practical work. It's actually kind of strange teaching it without me getting my hands on a pulse. So I have figured out that I can actually do some demonstration later on the couch here I'm in my treatment room now. So I'll see what I can show. So yeah, bear with the sort of difficulty of the fact there won't be the practical work that will be kind of normally complementing this. Okay. Oh, get rid of those things. How come those are still there?
I think you have to undo.
Thank you.
Some sort of back.
Undo. Okay, thank you. Maybe there's a laser pointer. What's this?
But you've done it. It's fine.
Okay, no, all right, I've done it. Thank you very much, Karina. All right, so I'll get the hang of it. Okay, so this one is about the introduction to the Mai Jing pulse diagnosis. I'm going to have something to do with the historical context to show where this system fits into like the whole flow of pulse diagnosis. And then there's some preliminary matters, some things to do with anatomy and other practical matters. So that's the what we're doing today. And now is the introduction to the Mai Jing pulse diagnosis. So the learning objectives here are the learning objectives, not just now, but of the whole seminar, of the whole series, and the weekend session. The ones that I really want to get over are the 8 extraordinary vessel diagnosis. This is such an exciting thing. It's incredibly empowering. It leads to really good results. It's really easy to do. The more I do it, the more I see this pulse method as being like incredible. So extraordinary. I mean, it's sort of extraordinary in that it's a lot easier and it gives better results than the normal kind. So it's really it's a bit of a puzzle that it's um, not taught, and it's clearly in the classics. So that's kind of my top level learning outcome that I'd love. The second one is this 5-level pulse diagnosis is also extremely empowering, and it's also simple. The method that I have evolved, this Mai Jing method, has got some new material in it as well. So for the people who are joining from, oh yes, I should say some people will be joining from the Mai Jing courses I've done previously. They will see some of the new material in the method. And that basically I've been doing it for about 10 years and it has been evolving. So now there are a few new things in there, as I will tell you later. Okay, so as a whole, pulse diagnosis is a challenging subject and not well understood. So just before we recorded, we were talking about how sometimes the pulse, what we learn is not so easy. And I definitely have had experience myself of feeling that this system that I kind of know historically is like super important is like, when I learned it, I just didn't get it. I mean, it was so kind of disappointing and concerning that something that I know is like one of the pillars of diagnosis just was like absent. I mean, not absent, but just kind of like not really alive, not really kind of working. So it's really awful struggling in the clinic. I mean, it's the opposite is great when you can do it. You know, if you feel that you do your diagnosis, you've got a good flow, and then you get good results. It's just an incredible feeling as a practitioner. So for me, learning to do the diagnostic, new kind of diagnostic things has worked really well for me. So included in that is the work of applied channel theory. That has been like an amazing backbone of diagnosis for me. And alongside it is this Mai Jing pulse diagnosis. So basically with people, one of those methods is going to work. Basically, I think that probably 3 out of 4 people I see the pulse works for like really reliably. And then for those quarter that doesn't work with, then the applied channel theory channel examination is there. And actually with the channel examination, sometimes that doesn't work either. And then there's the post diagnosis. So when you have a couple of systems that work well together, then you really are in a good place. You can triangulate between the different methods. So yeah, anyway, so basically, for me, post-diagnosis was not easy, and I have kind of overcome it through my own study. So with this Mai Jing, we're going to be having a fresh look at this text, and we will uncover information that's really useful. And as I mentioned, with this good diagnosis, you get better results, you enjoy yourself. So it's definitely a win-win. Okay, so this slide here is how the system used to be. And it has, oh yeah, good, okay, got my laser pointer. So it starts, and this is very similar, A, B, and C. So I've chosen this A, B, and C with a reason. I want it to feel easy. And that's not to say that it's simple. It just feels easy. And I thought that I'd break it down into 3 chunks of information, and that should be easy enough to think, okay, I start with the A, I move to the B, I move to the C. So that kind of works. That kind of works really well. It used to be with 6 sub-steps like this, and this got a little bit more complicated now. Oh, by the way, this is what the course the course that comes up is like this. It's a day 1, a day 2. We basically go through A, B, C, and we have case studies. That's what that is there doing. Sorry, I'm just going to skip ahead to where we are. Just want to show you what's new is this A3 is the 3 levels method. So this is just something I've been working on. The new system is split into again A, B, C, but each one of them have got 3 sub-steps. So I know it looks more complicated, but actually, since all of these methods have some validity, it's easier to do it like this. So it was actually easier in the end to make it this way. And I think there's a kind of harmony as well with having 3 big chunks and 3 sub-steps. And I've called those sub-steps, just for the sake of calling them something, A1, A2, A3. That's just like a code. So if you look at step A, it's got A1, A2, A3. You could also call those by the methods that are there as well. So for instance, A3 is the 3 levels method. So I'm going to explain all of this as we go on. This is the subject of the whole webinar series, but that's basically what we are studying. Okay, I'll go back. So, as I mentioned, it was designed to be easy to learn and easy to put into practice. So it is not, I definitely am not saying that this method is the most complex. There are way more complicated methods out there. But this is pretty straightforward, and it shouldn't take too long. I think how long the diagnosis method takes is an issue. I like to, in fact, it needs to be fast enough because the pulse starts sinking and going soft after about 3 or 4 minutes. So it really has to be done quickly, in my opinion, especially to find some of these more interesting features that are in this system. So it's fairly straightforward, easy to learn, easy to put into practice. It can be integrated into the standard methods of pulse diagnosis. So this is not a radically different method. I mean, it is radically different in some ways, but it is part of, it fits into the standard methods. So I believe that basically what I found are methods that have been put to one side that should be in the standard methods. So I'm trying to rehabilitate them, in essence. I originally learnt this method from a practitioner in America, Peter Ekman, who his book is very nice. It's this one here, The Complete Acupuncturist. It describes many systems, including Korean and Ayurvedic methods. It's super complicated, so I kind of got inspired with my method from that, and I discovered later that Peter Ekman, also the system that he was interested in, actually came from this book. Oh, actually, this book wasn't written at the time, but this teacher, he's called William Morris, and this book, Neoclassical Pulse Diagnosis, is simpler and also is complex as well, but definitely quite good. So this is what I'm kind of going through at the moment. This actually wasn't, I don't think it was available when I wrote my book, which is this one. So obviously this is the one I recommend. It's obviously, look, it's smaller than the others. It's easier. It's less content in a way, and it can fit into your bag easily. So nice and slim. It's got, but it's got all the basics of this method, including some other methods that are actually that I sort of don't actually even use. So the main core of this is like about half of it is exactly what I'm going to be showing on the courses. So that's this is one I recommend. So both of those writings I was mentioning do they use a key method, right? And these make clinical findings that feed into a method of investigation that results in really good new approaches. So they've got, it's kind of like a new style. They call it neoclassical, and the core of this neoclassical idea is that you can use the classics, go back into the classics, but don't just stop there. Use your own clinical experience as a testing ground to see whether the methods work for you or not. And this is actually a really empowering idea, that we actually use our own experience to work with the method. So it's a kind of active. As users of these methods, we are not passive. We've got to figure out what we're feeling and try and make sense of the methods that we're using. So it's kind of unusual. It's a very engaged method, and it results in very dynamic methods. But the thing is that it goes back to the classics, and I've done in the same spirit, use these approaches, gone back to the classic text, the Mai Jing and some others, recheck my methods. But the key thing is it's the clinical reality that matters. Whether what I'm finding in the clinic is actually working. So the clinical reality has to be our baseline. It has to be the thing that we work with. There's no good having like an amazing method, but actually not find it's impossible to use or doesn't bring any benefits. So yeah, so basically my understanding developed into this book. This book is called Essential Pulse Diagnosis. And it just really means some, really useful basic things. Now that was based on the Pulse Classic. Well, it's on the screen. You can see how many pages it has. This is definitely hardcore for understanding the methods. It's basically a kind of descriptions of Chinese medicine things without the guideline for how you're going to use it. So it's not very easy to understand. So my work has been to sort of interpret this, and I had a question which was on the screen. If we could make a pulse diagnosis method that works based on this writing, what might it look like? So basically, I'm asking the question, we come up with a method that's a usable method, not a one that's too long to use, or in some ways not useful. So it comes back to this usefulness idea. And this is one I showed you before, showing that new step, this 3 levels. And there's also this one here, I just want to highlight the 9 regions method. I had been sort of playing with the idea of not using it, as it is quite hard to understand, and it's quite hard to teach it. However, it's actually amazing. So I've saved it from being chopped out of my method, and there it is. The 9 regions method, it's an advanced method. It's super good. I think it shows the collateral vessel, the collaterals, the low collaterals of the of at least 9 channels. I think it's 12 channels. Is super exciting. So that's nearly every patient I'm seeing at the moment, I have the opportunity to test this method at the moment, and it's really exciting to see that it gives information that's useful. Okay, so a step-by-step approach is what this is. So this is just to quickly show you. We're working with the idea of the overall pulse, the 3 jiao, the 3 levels. This first step is done with the all the fingers on the pulse as a whole. The next one, which is step B, is for the extraordinary vessels, and it's broken up into the Chong, Ren, and Du, and the other extraordinary vessels, and then these Luo Mai. The reason why the 9 regions Luo pulses are here is because it uses the same idea of using the sides of the pulse, or the sides of the artery. And then the last one are really the Zhang Fu. I think I've got some other slides that show these in more detail, so I'll just do that now. So we have, just a sec, I just need to move these little things. Okay, we have step A as 3 fingers moving as one. So that means you, instead of thinking of 3 fingers, imagine they're 1 finger. So when you come down onto the pulse, you're imagining that your fingers are just 1 finger feeling the pulse. In fact, you could use your thumb or just 1 big finger to feel these pulses, and you would feel it. So that's the key, 3 fingers as 1. And, oops, sorry. Okay, here we go. It's called the whole pulse method, and that is why you use 3 fingers as 1. The first bit of it is the overall pulse. This is a super simple way of starting it with excess and deficiency. And then the second bit of it, the 3 jiao, is the state of the 3 burners. And also it's the area beyond the 3 burners. So this is quite useful. It sort of sets the scene for later understanding. So it's not sort of like vital. And the 3-layer is also quite useful. So as a whole, if you had step A by itself, it would give you some information, but not enough to make a full diagnosis. You would definitely have to triangulate with other methods. So this is also kind of quite similar to how pulse diagnose some simple TCM methods. And also Dr. Wangju Yi, his pulse diagnosis method was based on the whole pulse. In step A also, if you feel a whole pulse finding that the pulse is wiry or thin or overall very deficient, then those are findings for step A. So it's actually really, it's nice and simple. It's definitely easy to do. And if you only do excess and deficiency of A1, then that is good. That's sort of enough. Can I just check that everything is going through? The recording is fine, Karina? Yep. Any questions so far? No? No, okay. I will carry on for the moment and then talk about step B, my current favorite. The sides of the artery is what we're assessing. So in other words, if we imagine that we are not just feeling a pulse, but we're feeling an artery, we are using our ability to feel all the way around the artery like this, from the top to the side, hooking over and pulling on the inside. So we've got the outside, the top, and the inside. So we've actually got 9 places we can touch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's why this has also got this 9 regions method that is later. This shows the Chong, Ren, and Du, which are all on the midline. That's for B1. B2 is the 5 movements. So that's Yin and Yang, Wei Mai, the Yin and Yang, Chao Mai, and the Dai Mai. So I don't know. For those who haven't seen this before, does this seem possible or amazing? I mean, I definitely would almost not believe that it was possible. I mean, for most people doing pulse, they would not think this is possible, but it is, and it is straightforward. Okay, and then this advanced part of it, the 9 regions, it, I believe, is showing basically excess findings in the channels. So obviously the channels are not just about the organs, but they are a structure of their own. So those who do channel examination and apply channel theory, they know that all of the channel system has a physiological validity. and the Luo collaterals are part of that. So are the sinew channels, or the channel sinews, and also the divergent parts of the channels. So basically, there are these like other parts of the channel system. They're just as important as the primary channels. And the 9 regions pulse method is finding excess findings in parts of the channel system. And they may be almost hidden. Bits that you don't expect to be important can be shown by this. So the this material currently, I am encouraged to continue going through this William Morris material. He calls it hidden channel involvement. So in other words, you might not be expecting, let's say, the spleen collateral to be involved with something, but with this diagnosis, you might find it. So it comes up very regularly with people with musculoskeletal conditions, but it just is interesting that it also shows it's really developed into a condition which is manifesting in the whole channel, not just like a local area, but it's really getting bigger. So that's an exciting area. So we will talk about that in the 3rd seminar and also in the actual hands-on material. Okay, so step C, 5 levels and 6 positions method. Actually, I'm calling it now the Zhang Fu method, but it uses the standard 6 positions that we normally have. So you guys know what that is, the 6 positions? Yeah? Yes, that's that. Yeah, 3 on each. Heart, liver, kidney yin, lung, spleen, kidney yang. Okay. The 5-level method indicates basic imbalances in the 5 Zhang organs, including psycho-emotional. Sorry, I'm missing an H there. Emotional factors. This can be thought of as an elemental imbalance, according to the 5 elements. It could kind of give you a hint about any constitutional imbalances if you follow the system of constitution, but it does show short-term psycho-emotional factors. So if somebody is having a bad day, let's say, and they are feeling stressed and they are feeling depressed, it will show in this system, even though it may be short-term. Let's say the person got into a traffic jam coming to the treatment, then that's an effect which is only present for kind of the last 20 minutes, but it should show on this one. So it's very, very interesting, very, very useful for getting deeper into the emotional world of the patient, but also you can see how the 5 Zhang actually play out in their imbalances with each other. So this is really exciting to be able to do this. I mean, it's kind of like a magic capacity. The yin and yang pulses are C2. So this shows both Zhang or Fu organs on any one pulse position, advanced. And just going back to the other advanced one, the 9 regions, it's definitely advanced because it's hard. You need more sensitivity to feel it, okay? That's the reason why it's advanced. And same with this, you just need a little bit more sensitivity. So it's not that it's hard, it's just that it's better to have worked with it for a little bit. But we'll see what we can do in the hands-on session. And then finally, the 24 qualities are the standard qualities that are in pulse diagnosis that you already know. Okay, so the ones, or the ones which you may be thinking you already know. So the good thing is, I hope you realize they're in the last step here. And actually, that's the importance. I mean, not that it's not important, but the other things are just as important. So these other factors are as important as the qualities. So I hope that may help you realize that understanding the qualities is not the be-all and end-all. If somebody said, right, from now on, you can never use the information from the qualities, I would be just fine. The amount of information I already said in this system is incredibly sophisticated. The qualities information just gives you a little bit more information about the substances, about, let's say, chi stagnation or dampness or blood deficiency or heat in an organ. So it's just like kind of zeroing in. It's like even more information. So there's already enough information from the other things, but this just gives you more information. Okay. Okay, I definitely need some questions now, even from Karina. Karina's been studying this method really well, in CPD.
Yes, it's very interesting that the last thing you do are the 24 qualities, because that's what I've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't know how you found learning it, but I don't find the qualities very easy to learn. At the moment, that's really also what I'm doing with my current research, is finding easier ways to teach the 24 qualities. I think it's something to do with what makes it hard is the fact, I don't know, do you find it easy to use the 24 qualities, or is it tricky?
Well, you kind of know that it's a wiry, or it's a full pulse, it's a superficial, or it's deep, or it's slippery. These kind of qualities.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
basic
that's just
ones, and then there are like hollow and more serious conditions.
Yeah, and then there are things which you just probably don't know. You think, well, I just don't know what that one is.
No, I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but that's what we've been taught.
So basically, that's where nearly everybody is at. What you just said is probably 90% of people are at that or worse. And then, like, well, let's say 5% of people don't use pulse at all, and then 5% are quite good at pulse. So maybe it's something like that. So I don't know if it's something to do with learning 24 things, but I'll just show you. I've got it. By the way, I have a collection of all of my pulse books here. So this guy, Bob Floors, he's quite an interesting book. He basically says, what he says is, get a grip, learn them. So I'm like, okay, I still haven't learned them all. Okay, I basically have, even though, listen, I've written the book about the pulses, but that's not the same as knowing them off by heart.
No, but they also have these pictures like a bamboo, like a knife on the bamboo and the pearls in the base, and all those kind of pictures, and that's kind of a bit helpful.
It can be helpful, exactly. So those things are helpful. So basically, whatever works for you for learning them is good. I feel that I've got to grips with the qualities. At least in this system, they're only 24, not 28. So we've already got 4 off. But my trick has been to chunk these down into different groups and try to make other groupings that are useful. And the other way I present this later on is basically like, you don't have to learn all of them, because you come up in your experience with the ones that are necessary for you to know. Okay, so maybe this is like learning a foreign language, and the difference was saying, well, you've got to be fluent before you go there. And then another way of going is say, well, you just go there, and occasionally you'll hear some words and you think, oh, what is that word? I keep on hearing it. And then some say, oh, that's our useful phrase, or whatever it is. And then you're like, oh, great, okay, I now know what that word is. So this is like learning a language. In a way, they're too many to learn easily when you're a student. You can learn them in your head, but it's different from feeling them, right?
I'm starting to remember. There are progressions from like deep to hidden and superficial.
Yes.
You know, they have this kind of, yeah.
Of course, there are these, you know, as Westerners, we try to make sense of it. We say we can do it on width, on depth, on rhythm, on strength, on texture. So that's one way of doing it. So there are various ways of chopping it up. So I'll hopefully show you some ways that are quite useful. Okay, so
yes, please go on.
Yep. Do you have another question? Oh.
No, just that, like, if you have a patient and its rhythm is like, I had a patient and suddenly his heart rhythm was unregular. It was very serious.
And did you feel it?
Yeah. It usually had a regular rhythm, and now it was irregular.
Okay, so this is a perfect example.
But then, you know, something is going on seriously. Yeah.
So then at that point, I just will show you. I've come off screen share, haven't I, Karina?
No, it's not important, but the point is to take the pulse and then suddenly, oh wow, it's irregular. What's going on here?
Definitely,
You know?
definitely. I am just going to do something. I'm going to share something else. I'm going to share my. So if you then, let's just say, okay, can you, oh, I need to double click, sorry. Okay, so look, then what you can do is get out my book, let's say, which has got the descriptions in, and you can then start reading. Sorry, I've drawn on my own book. You can then start to read and see whether the description works for some of those things. So for instance, this one with rhythm, and then basically compare. This one is called the bound pulse, or sometimes that's called knotted. Okay, this word jie is the same as a jie in lump in applied channel theory. Okay, so it's the same nodule. So it's a little knot. It's like a tight thing, comes and goes moderately, sometimes stopping and starting. Okay, that's the bound pulse, and this one is the intermittent die pulse, coming and going, coming but stopping, not able by itself to return. A pulse that is bound jie means life, intermittent die means death. Okay, so you don't have to tell your patient that.
No.
Basically, this was written at a time where this was serious, really serious, where you didn't have cardiovascular support. So it might have been one of these. So this just shows a really difficult situation. So basically, then what you do is you could figure it out. Then after that, you will know what the difference is. So
this particular patient, he was hospitalized with a serious infection, so he was about to get really sick.
Right.
So it was very serious.
Yes. See, even though when we have patients who are unwell, of course we say, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that," but actually, it's useful for us because then we can actually think, "Okay, I want to see which of these is it, or is it just slow?" For instance. So it shows you these things. So this is the way to learn it with real life. It's so hard learning it. It's so hard learning it another way, in my opinion. So we've been through the introduction. Any other questions, guys? No? Okay, let's take a few minutes break. Literally, let's do 5 minutes and then we'll come back. Okay? Okay, great. So yeah, now we're going to do some history work. So let me screen share. Okay, you can see this now, can't you? You can see
yes, we can.
My thing.
Your hand.
Visualizer, my hand.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. The visualizer. Okay. So history. So, well, does anybody know anything of a history of pulse diagnosis? Anything interesting?
No.
Right. Did you say no?
No.
Okay. So basically, let's start anyway with the Mai Jing, our book. So this the clue for this is this word Jing means classic. All right, so this means it's a classic. So this means classic of the vessel, or the vessel classic. So Mai means vessel, and this was written in 310, about 310 of the Common Era, by Wang Shu He. Write his name down here. Okay, so this book is basically a compilation of information. It is definitely not the case that he wrote all of this book. He wrote, I think that he might have written possibly book 10. of this book, which only comes right here at the back. So it's only like a tiny part of it. About all of this is basically a copy. About this much of it is basically, sorry, I'll show it like this. This much of it is basically a copy of the Shanhan Lun. So it's which actually Wang Shuhe saved. And then there are some really interesting methods in here that are from bits of writing that have since disappeared. So basically, it actually saves some methods that have been totally lost. But there's lots of things in here that nobody knows what they mean. So I just basically chose 2 or 3 methods in here, including this book 10 material, which is very substantial, to use my method. So book 10 is like a gold mine of information. So he was like a compiler. Maybe he wrote book 10. I mean, nobody knows, and they never really described where does it all come from. That's what we sort of do in the West, but they were happy just to sort of reproduce it, basically. So feeding into this is previous classic, which is the Nanjing. So this was written considerably before, like, let's just say it was 100 BCE. So like 400 years before. So this was a really well-established classic. And this has got things like the 6 positions. It also has got the 5-level pulse diagnosis, which also is here in the Mai Jing. So the Mai Jing has got quite a lot from the Nanjing, where it just basically copies it. And you can tell it's one of those things because it will start with a phrase like Chibo, or the Yellow Emperor asked Chibo. So basically it shows that it was like a copy. I mean, as I said before, they didn't mind copying. They usually copied. Okay, so feeding into the Nanjing was the one that we all know, the Suan. Or the plain questions. Okay, so that was also written ages ago. So that was, ages before that, like 300 to let's say 200 before Common Era. And this has got more simplified pulse methods. It's debate, we're not sure what kind of pulse methods they did at the time. And that is because they just used to use this word Mai to talk about pulse, and Mai just means vessel. So it doesn't mean any more than vessel. It means something like blood vessel, or a vessel of like the Luo Mai, or the Ren Mai. So that word Mai we know as in Du Mai, Ren Mai, Yin Chao Mai, or the Shui Mai, the blood vessels. So that is what Mai is. So when they said in the Su Wen, and also in the Ling Shu, its companion piece, that you put your fingers on the Mai, then we don't know whether that was our fingers on the pulse or our fingers on the channel. So it could also be that they were talking about channel examination in the Su Wen, and so in these classics, these really early classics. So we're not sure also whether it was feeling the different pulse positions in the channels, for instance, to diagnose the lung pulse, feeling lung 9, or diagnosing the heart pulse, heart channel, by feeling the vessel, the beating vessel at heart 7. So that's just a kind of another way of doing it, or large intestine feeling large intestine 5, or other points, let's say liver 3. So, these kinds of other alternative, we use them now as kind of alternative pulse sites, but this might have been what they were referring to as the Mai at the time. At one point, there's, I think it's Suan 18, they have the description of basically nine pulses, 9 pulse sites. And this number 9 keeps on kind of showing itself. So this was 3 in the head, 3 in the hands, 3 in the legs. So that was kind of perhaps the origin of the idea of using 9 as a kind of unit of how many channels you would examine. Okay, so I hope you can see that it wasn't clear whether, in this case, these 9 pulses were definitely these sites of, let's say, in the head, Tai Yang. It included heart 7. It included some of these really tricky points in the groin for the liver, spleen. So, you know, actually really difficult to use that for diagnosis. And there is at least one passage that seems to suggest that you had a 6-position map. So it seems that it was developing, you know, this classic has developed over many, many years. So the Suan includes sort of multi-faceted methods. So I think there's a 6-position map in there as well. Okay, so after that, after the Mai Jing, there is coming closer to in our direction. The next work that is of interest is called the Mai Jing, and this means pulse rhymes. Okay, so rhyme is like a way of memorizing. So basically, at some point, and this was done in 1189. So by this stage, we've got a better date for it. Okay, and at this stage, it was the case that the Mai Jing was something that people were kind of told to study. Look at the time difference. That's like 800 years before Mai Jing to Mai Jui, but it still includes the 5-level pulse. So it's still in use in at that period. So basically, you know, less than 1,000 years ago, it was still in use, the 5-level pulse. Okay, and this was basically rhymed. These were like rhymed and easy to use little sayings about the pulse, which was a kind of synopsis of the whole of the pulse classic. Then the next one after this is the well, I'm just going to give you the name, Li Shi Zhen, and he wrote 2 books. He wrote the Bin Hu Mai Shui, (1564), and he also wrote, and this means the Lakeside Masters pulse teaching. All right, so this is this tiny book. All right, Lakeside Masters Study of the Pulse, and it actually is half of it is a copy of the Mai Jui. So basically, he just basically copied it and said, well, this is what you can use. So it's a kind of translation of the Mai Jui. It doesn't seem to have the 5-level pulse diagnosis, but I don't know why. Anyway, I haven't found it yet. And then later, so that's called the four character rhymes, and then there are these ones called the 7 character rhymes, and this has got the ones which are, which people have studied, the slippery pulse, where there's much more information. So this is quite good, actually. He also has got extraordinary channels in here. So, for instance, straight up, straight down, floating is the governing vessel, or Du Mai. So this is one of the origins of the extraordinary vessel pulses. But the other one is this incredible book, An Exposition on the 8 Extraordinary Vessels. That also is written by Li Jizhen. So this is a beautiful book. I really recommend it if you're interested in the 8 extraordinary vessels. And it's like a beautifully translated. And here he has got the phrase, the 9 pathways of the Qi opening. And this is the same as my 9 regions. And this is really nice. It's basically in this passage. It's what he says here is something along the lines of, you've got these nine ways of feeling the sides of the pulse, and that within that you can also understand the 8 extraordinary vessels. But this thing has been lost, and this is really sad. And for that reason, he's bringing it back. So it's very cool that that Li Jizhen had read the Mai Jing and was kind of resuscitated the 8 extraordinary vessel method, and also this 9 region method. So yeah, so that's the exposition. I think people sometimes just call it the exposition, but it's on the 8 extraordinary vessels. So that is the history of, these are this kind of historical record of the pulse diagnosis that we have. What I can tell you, if you are interested, that the present day kind of Taoist practitioner Jeffrey Yuen used an old book about the exposition of the 5 extraordinary vessels to base his pulse methods. And I will just show you this book here, The Art of Pulse Diagnosis by Anne Cecil Sturman. Shows like super, like this is really, really complicated, but really interesting as well. So this book is based on Jeffrey Yuen's book, Jeffrey Yuen's teaching, and that's based on this work of the Li Jizhen's 8 extraordinary vessels. So my method also obviously does these 8 extraordinary vessels, but it's pretty much in tune with this original writing that comes from the Mai Jing. So I hope I haven't bamboozled you with too much information. Any questions on this? No? So, I mean, I have found it really fascinating getting hold of all these books and realizing that like A, they're not easy to get hold of. B, the Mai Jue is not translated into English. I mean, it's so important, and it has no translation. I have started translating it. I'm not a sinologist. I've had some help with it, and you know, I'm making progress with getting something that is in a reasonable shape to understand. Some of the translation of this Mai Jue is in my book at the end. So me and Deborah Wolf translated, or Deborah really translated the first section of it, which is pretty good. I mean, it's nice to read. It's nice to read these things. I mean, as I mentioned before, is it useful to understand these? There is some usefulness about understanding the classics, and in particular, I'm interested in studying the Mai Jue and some of the other texts to do with this, to try to find better ways of grouping the qualities, because they have different ways of grouping them in the Mai Jue into I'll just tell you now, just if you're interested, into a group of 7, 8, and 9. So that's how they chunked it into 7, 8, and 9. So it's really intriguing that they broke down the 24. So 24 equals 7, 8, and 9. I think it's I'm always interested in numbers, but I just find this extremely interesting that 24 equals 7 plus 8 plus 9, and that this was used, this format of 7, 8, and 9 was used as the building blocks for how to break down the pulse qualities. So it's like, you know, I mean, this is fascinating. People don't teach this. Well, basically, people don't know it. I mean, I'll be honest with you. People are not. There's not current clear information. So we are actually all at the cutting edge of trying to understand what these texts really mean. And it's one thing to do a translation of the text, but it's another thing. Well, why is there 7, 8, and 9? Was somebody just playing with the numbers, or is it useful, or is it a good learning tool? So the Mai Jing is something of a learning tool. So I find it interesting that they tried this chunking method. Anyhow, so that's where my current kind of investigation is when I have time. Yeah. So any other questions about that, or any other comments or observations about history? No. Okay. So Karina, have you got a question?
Yeah. It was just to do with how it informed you, and how also what you've written hasn't sort of materialized out of thin air, that it's really something that has a basis in other scholars' long-term knowledge, and it's been refined, and it's been explained. But in your book, I think you're breaking it down into kind of digestible methods, so
that's right.
So it's, you're not inventing the methods, but you are showing how they could make sense.
Yeah.
To
exactly.
To somebody else in a teaching format, which the books themselves, in a way, maybe don't do very clearly, because they don't come with an explanation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so basically, the books by these more complicated books that exist now do have explanations, really sometimes really detailed explanations, but they don't show necessarily where does the information come from. And that's absolutely, in my mind, acceptable if it's understood it's within a lineage, a direct teaching, like an oral lineage. So that's one kind of understanding. So the work of shall I just come off the share, actually, so we can all be in the same space? So the work of hang on, I'll just change this gallery. Okay. Yeah, the work of Jeffrey Yuen, for instance, that has given rise to this teaching of Ancestor Sturman, is extremely detailed. I mean, I was just reviewing this book today, how incredibly detailed it is. But this is within a lineage directly from Jeffrey Yuen, who's obviously using kind of older texts, but I think he's using a lot of his own interpretation. And then the other kind of contemporary lineage is this one, which is the Shen hammer system. Also very, very in-depth, wonderful depth of understanding and complex, and there's a lot of complexity here. And again, this is another kind of lineage. So this basically doesn't use classical sources. So I kind of took the idea that it's important to use the actual classics. So for instance, if I just go back to the screen share. So for instance, in the beginning of the Mai Jing, in fact, the beginning of the Mai Jing, the Mai Jing is the description of the qualities. like a glossary. Sorry, sneeze. Okay, so it's like a glossary, and then the next line is this amazing phrase where they talk about what things are alike, that the wiry and the tight are alike, the slippery and the rapid are alike, and it's just described in really really clear characters. I mean, it doesn't take very much learning to learn these characters. It basically says wiry and tight have the same image. So the wiry and the tight look the same, kind of thing. So it's extremely simple. So my kind of method was going straight back to the original and trying to just like contrast exactly what the characters are and think, oh wow, this is really interesting. So this whole phrase just means wiry and tight are alike, slippery and rapid are alike, the leather and the full are alike. So in other words, what can we use this simple information in a practical way? So I'm kind of using a direct, almost like going directly into the classics and trying to resuscitate methods from it. So yeah, so basically I used the method then of doing my own translations. And even though my Chinese is definitely not advanced, I know enough of it to know my way round to the characters, and I know enough to be able to do some basic translations. So I found that more useful than using the existing translation in English of the key passages. So I'm only talking about little parts of the whole book. I mean, like just real small chunks. I basically wrote this book in lockdown. I couldn't see any patients, and I can remember there was one time I spent like a whole week on just one small passage. So it was actually ideal, the forced kind of having to stay away from patients and not be working in the normal way. Good. Any questions coming up from that? No. Okay, so Karina, I'm going to need you to come through, and I'm going to move the camera. Hold on. Some sore spot. So I'm going to show you. Can you guys see okay? Yeah, can you hear?
Yep, good.
Cool. All right.
So am I good like this?
Are you going totally flat? Yeah. No, I don't know if I'm just going to move you a little bit. Okay, so practicalities of this method is ideally, totally ideally, but I think it's worthwhile, have the patient lying down on a couch when you do this method. And my couch, I think you could see, is quite wide, and it allows the arm to be comfortably lying on the couch without the feeling of it's going to fall off. Okay, so that's really quite important. What happens then is that the artery itself is totally like relaxed inside the arm. So it has enough space. It has enough space to be felt, and you could easily feel it as a structure, as an actual as a 3D structure inside the wrist. So the all of the methods are done with the thumb sticking up, okay, like this. So in other words, both hands are in this thumbs up, call it thumbs up position, but it means that basically the wrist is on its side, being supported by the couch. If for some reason your couch was not wide enough, or you had to do it with somebody like, like you met somebody in the street and said, do some pulse diagnosis, then you could use your other hand as a sort of replacement table, and then use the pulse diagnosis like this. Okay, so this is an important factor to try to prepare yourselves to doing pulse diagnosis. Now, are you doing pulse diagnosis? So those who are here, Are you doing pulse diagnosis on a couch or just in the sort of at a desk or at a chair or?
We were taught to do it when you had those cushions and the hands were lying on two cushions while sitting. But I personally prefer to do it while they're lying down.
Yeah.
Because it's much more relaxed for me and for them.
Exactly. So my technique basically is to do the pulse diagnosis with the patient lying down, and I get them to lie down straight away. I mean, okay, let's say I've done a bit of chatting about how they are. I might do some channel examination in this position. Okay, so I will also be using this position. So if I've got them to lie down straight away when they come in, I can do channel examination and ask them how they are then. So I've kind of trying to reduce the amount of time where the patient is sitting. In fact, I'm now not having them sitting at all, and I'm trying to do everything in this position. So I do the channel examination first at the moment, and then I do the pulse diagnosis. So that's my current kind of order, unless they're very deficient, in which case I do the pulse diagnosis first. Now, why is that? It's because the pulse goes super soft when they start relaxing. So as soon as they start to kind of clock out and be like, oh, this is so nice to lie down, I don't really care what happens now, then at that point, the channel, the artery starts to relax, and the heart starts to relax, and the features that you might need to see start to go away. And then that's tricky because they've kind of, it's got too soft basically. So this method helps you. And sorry, what I'm trying to say is you've got to get to it quite quickly. So if it's deficient, you might need to do the pulse diagnosis first, especially for deficiencies. However, extraordinary vessel presentations will be there the whole time until you treat. So they're so easy to feel. You put your foot, when you know what to feel. Previously, the things that you probably have called wiry or super wiry and full are actually extraordinary vessel findings in all likelihood, because they're so often the case. The extraordinary vessels are there that, in effect, you don't know what you're feeling. That's been my experience with teaching this material. Is I'll say, look, this is an extraordinary vessel, and people say, oh my goodness, I had that just yesterday with my patient. I said wiry. So in fact, it's just extraordinary vessels. Those are easy to feel, and they'll be there the whole time until you start treating the vessels. The other thing that I definitely need to say that this method has got the process of feedback. So it is the thing that probably is the most exciting aspect of it for me at the moment, is that it's extremely dynamic. And what I mean by that is I could be feeling the pulse. I could be thinking, oh, I think this is an extraordinary vessel. Okay, really interesting. I think this is a yin chao mai pulse. Okay, so what I'm going to do is then okay, my fingers are on the pulse still, and then I'm going to reach down and feel for kidney 6, and I'm going to press on kidney 6, which is the opening point for the yin chao mai. And what's feeling the pulse presentation that was for the yin chao mai, pressing kidney 6 really strongly makes it go away. It's like, wow, this is amazing. This is so good. It's so useful. Or let's just say it's a presentation. Is it a daimai? I'll be feeling the daimai pulse. I thought, oh, okay, daimai pulse. Okay, I'll just test that it's a daimai pulse. Pressing gallbladder 41. Oh, okay, it softens it. Maybe if the person's got a headache or something like that, it softens a bit. So press again. Oh, yeah, it definitely softened when I did it. So that's what I mean by feedback. It gives a very fast feedback. So you can also do needling like that. You can be needling a point and be feeling the pulse, and feeling the pulse actually change as you needle. So sometimes you have to use like different hands, but depending on how you're doing your needling. but it's basically extremely dynamic. It gives you the feedback as you needle to test the points, but also by the end of the session, the pulses should be really smooth and really even. And that's a sign that the diagnosis has happened properly and that the treatment's happened. So that's basically how we do it. I think my camera's about to fall down. I think that's probably good. That's good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, so that's let me put this back on. Good. Let's see. I'll see what else is on my presentation. Oh yeah. Okay. A little bit more stuff to show you with the presentation, and then we'll be done. So. Okay, so I just showed the position of palpation, and then I'll just talk a bit about anatomy, which I've alluded to already. And yep, so in the palpation position that I just showed you, and definitely from step B onwards, like doesn't matter so much for step A, you could do step A pretty much anywhere, including that kind of method that we were just mentioning with a hand on a pulse cushion. And by the way, this method of having the hand fully extended, this is the normal TCM position. This basically shows some things, but it limits the amount of information that it could show. So when you go into the vertical position, the pulse just becomes more alive. It's really different. So maybe for those who like before the hands-on method, if you're just trying things out at home, just try in your clinic, just try out switching to this vertical position. It allows the softening of the structures. And here's a view of the artery with 3 layers. So basically what I'd like you to realize is this is what we're working with. We're working with an artery. It's got a tough case. It's got an elastic area. It's got, it is elastic when we're young. It's got smooth muscle fibers, and it's got a slippery inside, and it's full of blood. So this is really what we are touching. We are feeling this, whether we realize it or not. This is making this pulsing impulse that we call the pulse. But in Chinese, it's just called Mai. So this is all that it is. We are feeling the artery. We really are feeling the artery. We just don't realize we're feeling the artery. It's not thus the pulsing impression. The Chinese word for Mai, which is this character on the right, just means vessel. But if you say I'm doing vessel diagnosis, it gives you a different idea than saying I'm doing pulse diagnosis. You might have found that when you do pulse diagnosis and people say, oh, I've got a pulse of like 74 before you do it, trying to be helpful. And then you say, well, that's not just the only thing I'm doing. I'm not just counting the beats. I mean, in fact, I almost never count the beats. So I'm never thinking about the beat number, or at least generally never. I'm interested in where the artery is, what is its shape, how is it high up in the is it high up in our space? So if we have okay, so this is a model I made of the can you see that right? Okay, this is a model of what I call the pulse space. Okay, and first position, second position, third position. Here's our artery, right? And this artery may be high, or it may be low, or it may be a different shape, or it may have a kind of kink in it. But the question is, where is it in the space? That's more important than thinking, what is it like? And it's easier than say, like, for instance, here, it's high, or there, it's low, or you can say there, it's on one side, or there, it's on the other side. So this is what the artery really is like. It really is in the space in our wrist. And that's actually what we're diagnosing. That's actually what we're feeling, and it gives us information. So it's much more important than the qualities. The qualities only get us somewhere, and we're probably likely to know. Let's say after doing our pulse diagnosis, we say, oh, they've got a slippery pulse. Well, it's only like a little bit of information. It's not as much as thinking, oh, they've got a Dai Mai or a Chong Mai problem. I mean, that's really useful to think those things. Anyhow, so the point is we are feeling the artery. And when we know that, we start to realize that things change with the artery. Like, let's just say, realizing that they've got smooth muscle fibers here, that, you know, you can realize that in this area here that I'm just shading, this whole area can become relaxed when the person relaxes. So this means that the whole artery will itself become softer when the person relaxes. It basically changes shape. So you can also think the converse of that is when people are tense, all of the muscle fibers, all the smooth muscle fibers of the whole body are tense. So that means it can actually make the artery change shape. So that's actually what's going on physiologically. When we put a needle in to a certain point, it changes the artery because the smooth muscle fibers are involved. So it is actually totally a feedback. So as I was mentioning, that's probably the most exciting thing for me, is the fact that things change super rapidly. And it has kind of real physiological meaning. All right, so that's all I need to say, really. Stop share. Any questions about anything at all, or comments?
I really like the model.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a work of art.
Yeah.
My pulse model.
Yeah.
It's quite cool, isn't it? I made this when I was doing the kind of next round of writing to try to do a diagram for my, I couldn't figure out how to do a diagram with my computer, so I was like, well, I'll just make a model and then kind of take a photo of it. So that's what that is. Good. Well, I think I've given you a kind of whistle-stop tour of this system and the kind of key points of it. After this, it's going to be step A, and we'll look at that as much as I can in this context. And as I mentioned, definitely easier if you can be, even if you don't know how to do it, just trying it out at home, because it'll get you into that rhythm of trying to feel something. Just one thing maybe I'll leave you with, one idea which made a real impression on me, is that I learned a very small amount of Shen Hammer pulse diagnosis from a teacher called Sybil Hussein, who's sadly passed away. And I was really intrigued that the way that she presented her material was really similar to my methods. So it's really interesting that, faced with how to teach pulse diagnosis, teachers come to the similar methods of, at the beginning, keeping it really simple. And she did a step that I don't do, but I think is really, really nice. Anyway, I just share this with you because obviously it's not my method. It's how Sybil taught, but I'll just share it with you. And that is the first thing she did, from what I remember, is she said, just put your fingers on the pulse, and I just want you to be totally open to whatever comes to you from the experience of putting your fingers on there and being open to them. Like, you're gonna basically, here you are, I'm here, you're there, I'm here to help you. Tell me, pulse, tell me about what I need to do to help you. And that's almost exactly what I normally personally have been thinking about before doing pulse diagnosis. Obviously, that's not in the Mai Jing, right? That's kind of my own experience, but it's just something that has come to me. And I was just really intrigued that Sybil used almost the exact words. But in terms of her lecture seminars, she just had this wonderful way of just saying, just let whatever comes to you, images, whatever. And so it was just a really nice kind of exercise. And people put their pulse, if you put their fingers on somebody's pulse and like, oh, I've got this image of like a faraway, faraway landscape, and then the kind of the sun and the waves and a kind of mountain. So it's like, that's really cool. So in other words, rather than thinking, I don't know how to do it, just think, okay, I'll just let something come to me. And then out of that openness comes these kind of sense, maybe out of the openness, you can only focus on one thing, which is an A, which is excess and deficiency. Maybe I just invite you to think about excess and deficiency. So, nice and simple, basically nice and simple, just one finding, excess and deficient, and see if you can do that. I mean, almost anybody can do that. So, but it's actually super useful to do excess and deficiency. Okay, so that was my tiny homework for you, and inspiration from Sybil Hussein. Incidentally, some people from the Shenhammer tradition will probably be looking at these videos as well. So even though they're not in this seminars that I'm doing formally, I'm going to be meeting some of those practitioners later this year. So they will hello those people in the future, Rimka and Monique and others, and we'll commune later with all this information. So this is the end of the first one, and next one is step A. Thank you for coming. Thanks for spending this time, and see you next time. So it'll be exactly in a week for this particular time slot. So it's basically the next 4 weeks. They will be the same information in the morning sessions as well, which in the future will come basically the Monday afterwards. So if you wanted to do this one and missed it, the Monday after one is sort of more or less the same. Obviously, it's never the same teaching it either way, but you'll see. Okay, so thank you very much for coming, and see you next time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting. Nice. And you're so enthusiastic.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's very nice. It's very useful to have questions. So I really appreciate it.
So if you think of any in the week as well, maybe.
Yeah, feel free to share. We're on a group chat, Merit and Madho.
Brilliant. Okay then. I'll
Okay,
just stop.
okay, all right. So stop.